Okay, it's 4 o'clock. I want to call the April 8th, 2024 meeting of the Salina City Commission to order. I would ask staff if the Kansas Open Meeting Act required notice has been properly provided.
Yes.
Thank you. May we have roll call?
Mayor Longby,
Here.
Commissioner Davis,
Here.
Commissioner Hoppick,
Here.
Commissioner Ivy,
Here.
Commissioner Lankowitz.
Here. May all who are willing and able please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance in a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, just prior to starting the meeting, I was informed that we're having technical difficulties with our Zoom and Facebook feed, so if you go look for that, it might be there later. So that will bring us to awards and proclamations.
Item 3.1, recognition of the month of April 2024 as Sexual Assault Awareness Month. Angie White, DVAC Sexual Assault Advocate, will read the proclamation.
Hello. 2024 Sexual Assault Awareness Month proclamation. Whereas April is Sexual Assault Awareness Month, sexual violence is a widespread, preventable public health problem in Kansas. And whereas sexual violence is any sexual act that is perpetrated against someone's will, which includes sexual assault, rape, unwanted touching, threatened sexual violence, verbal sexual harassment, and all types of sexual violence involve victims who do not consent or who are unable to consent or who refuse to allow the act. And whereas 1 in 2 women and nearly 1 in 3 men experience some form of contact sexual violence in their lifetimes. And whereas in 2023, 1 incident of rape was reported to Kansas law enforcement every 8 hours. And whereas these statistics do not represent the true prevalence of sexual violence due to underreporting, and sex offenders often target people who they perceive as vulnerable, less powerful, and less credible. And whereas the offender is known to the victim in the vast majority of cases, 78.5% in Kansas. And whereas the effects of sexual violence may be felt directly after, for many months or years later, and confusion, anger, sadness, shame, guilt, helplessness, hopelessness, and self-blame are all common reactions to sexual violence. Whereas Domestic Violence Association of Central Kansas, also known as DVAC, provides 24/7, 365 free confidential services to victims of sexual violence in the city of Salina. And whereas DVAC advocates are available 24/7 at 785-827-5862 or toll free at 1-800-874-1499. Now therefore, the City of Salina, Kansas Board of Commissioners do hereby proclaim the month of April 2024 as Sexual Assault Awareness Month.
Thank you, Ms. White. Do you have any activities or
Yes, we do.
information going on?
As of tonight, we're doing a vigil for the survivors at Kansas Wesleyan University, Pioneer Village on the Steps. And then later on this month, the 19th will be at Astra to do, it's a speak night for survivors to come and read a poem that they might have written or just talk about their experiences that they've gone through.
Thank you. Come up, get a signed proclamation. Thank you. Item 3.2.
Item 3.2, recognition of the month of April 2024 as National Parkinson's Awareness Month. Lindsay Webb, Community Liaison with Accessible Home Care, will read the proclamation, joined by Nikki Welch, Hospice Care Coordinator, Callie Burgart, Salina Ortho Practice Administrator, and Amanda Randolph, Presbyterian Manor of Salina Sales Director.
Whereas Parkinson's disease is a chronic, progressive neurological disease and is the second most common neurodegenerative disease in the United States. And whereas Parkinson's disease is estimated to affect approximately 1 million people in the United States, and the prevalence will rise to 1.2 million by 2030.
Whereas Parkinson's disease is the 14th leading cause of death in the United States, according to the Center of Diseases Control and Prevention. Whereas it is estimated that the economic burden of Parkinson's disease is at least 52 billion annually, including direct, indirect, including treatment, Social Security payments, and lost income to patients and family members.
Whereas research suggests the cause of Parkinson's disease is a combination of genetic and environmental factors, but the exact cause and progression of the disease is still unknown. And whereas there is no objective test or biomarker for Parkinson's disease, and there is no cure or drug to slow or halt the progression of the disease, and
Whereas the symptoms of Parkinson's disease varies from person to person and can include tremors, slowness of movement and rigidity, difficult with balance, swallowing, chewing, and speaking, cognitive impairment, and dementia, mood disorders, and a variety of other non-motor symptoms. And whereas volunteers, researchers, caregivers, and medical professionals are working to improve the quality of persons living with Parkinson's disease and their families. And whereas increased research, education, and community support services, such as those provided by the Parkinson's Foundation and other organizations, are needed to find more effective treatment and to provide access to quality care to those living with the disease today.
Thank you. So I've had personal experience with patients with Parkinson's, and I know that you're doing a lot to manage the disease. Is that right?
That is correct. We, as Punching Out Parkinson's, a nonprofit organization here in Salina, Amanda and I are both certified Rock Steady boxing coaches, and that is one of the things that is proven to help reverse symptoms or help keep their symptoms at bay. We fight with them daily. We give them tough love. We do fundraisers throughout the year. With it being Parkinson's Awareness Month, this Thursday, April 11th, we're doing, with Rock Steady Boxing, it's called a Sit to Stand. So we're doing a fundraiser for that. Evolve Nutrition is also doing fundraiser from Thursday to Saturday with a special tea for Parkinson's. And with it being World Parkinson's Day, April 11th as well this Thursday. We do an annual fundraiser as well on Cinco de Mayo, this year, May 3rd, for Punching Out Parkinson's to really help anybody with the disease. Not only the ones who fight with it every day, but also their caregivers as well to give them support.
Okay, thank you. Can get a signed proclamation. Item 3.3.
Item 3.3, recognition of the week of April 15th through the 19th, 2024 is National Work Zone Awareness Week. Melissa Fowler, City of Salina Engineering Administrator, will read the proclamation.
Proclamation of the City of Salina, Kansas, whereas the construction work and repairs to our roads must be done with traffic on them, putting both motorists and workers at risk every day, and whereas workers diligently continue to improve, rebuild, and maintain roadways so motorists can safely and efficiently travel throughout Salina, and whereas in Salina, in Kansas, during 2023, 9 people were killed and 498 others were injured in 1,469 work zone-related crashes, and whereas nearly 90% of the people injured or killed in work zones crashes each year are motorists, making work zone safety important to all citizens, and whereas the top contributing circumstances to work zone crashes is inattention, followed by following too closely, driving too fast for conditions, improperly changing lanes, and violating the right-of-way. And whereas to reduce fatalities and injuries, motorists must remember to set aside distractions by extra cautious and give work zones their undivided attention when traveling. And whereas safety on the roads is a shared responsibility and we all must do our part to keep our roadways safe. And whereas the City of Salina is dedicated to enhancing work zone safety for both road workers and motorists. Now therefore be it resolved that I, Bill Longbine, Mayor of Salina, Kansas, do hereby proclaim the week of April 15th through the 19th as 2024 as National Work Zone Awareness Week.
Thank you. Well, Ms. Fowler, it's nice to, I get several emails and see your name. It's nice to put a face with the name now. So, yeah, we can never be too careful around work zones, and we appreciate all the work our city crews do.
And the Public Works Department currently has been working very hard at making sure that we're updating all special conditions that go to the contractors that work within the right-of-way so that they are aware of how important it is to have proper advanced signage in work zones. And we're also working diligently to notify the public of work zones in the area through updating our website and news releases.
Okay, thank you. Gosh, she's doing double duty today. Item 3.4.
Item 3.4, recognition of the month of April 2024 as Fair Housing Month. Brenda Mai, Vice Chair of the Human Relations Commission, will read the proclamation.
Hello. Whereas April 2024 marks the 56th anniversary of the passage of the Fair Housing Act, which prohibits discrimination in the sale, rental, and financing of homes, and whereas the Act enunciates a national policy of fair housing for all who live in the United States without regard to race, color, religion, national origin, sex, familial status, or disability, and whereas the City of Salina is committed to the mission and intent of Congress to provide fair and equal housing opportunities for all citizens. The principle of fair housing is not only national law and policy, but is enforced locally under Chapter 13 of Salina City Code. And whereas we celebrate the strides that have been made to remove barriers to fair housing and acknowledge that acts of housing discrimination are repugnant to a common sense of decency and fairness, and recognize that as a city and nation we still have much work to do. Now therefore be it resolved that Bill Longbine, Mayor of the City of Salina, do hereby proclaim the month of April 2024 as Fair Housing Month and encourage the people of Salina to learn more about their rights and responsibilities under the Fair Housing Act and the Kansas Residential Landlord and Tenant Act as we collectively fight housing discrimination within our community.
Thank you.
And we do have a fair housing seminar on April 26th at Tony's Pizza Event Center.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you about. Seen that press release, so thank you. We have no public hearings, and that will bring us to the consent agenda.
Item 5.1, approve the minutes of the meeting of March 25th, 2024. Item 5.2, approve resolution number 24-8196, authorizing and providing for the construction of landfill cell 21 and authorizing the issuance of temporary notes and/or general obligation bonds of the city to pay the costs thereof. Item 5.3, authorize the Salina Fire Department to purchase 6 thermal imaging fire cameras from Weiss Fire in the amount of $53,088. Item 5.4, award the bid for right-of-way Row 1 spraying services to Fox Lawn and Landscaping LLC for the spraying of broadleaf weeds in specified rights-of-way, and authorize the city manager to execute a contract with Fox Lawn and Landscaping LLC upon fulfillment of all prerequisites under the bid documents. Item 5.5, award the bid for mowing and trimming services for utilities locations for the 2024 through 2026 growing seasons to Fox Lawn and Landscaping LLC with an annual payment of $88,035 for the year 2024, and authorize the city manager to execute an agreement with Fox Lawn and Landscaping LLC upon fulfillment of all prerequisites under the bid documents. And item 5.6, approve resolution number 24-8197, a resolution of support for Building Kansas LLC with Aeroplanes Housing Development to submit a Kansas Housing Investor Tax Credit application.
Thank you. Is there any public comment on the consent agenda? Is there any items the commissioner would like to comment on or remove from the consent agenda? I do have a couple items here. I don't know if we need to remove them or we can just answer a couple quick questions. 5.4, the right-of-way spraying. My question is, have we considered using pre-emergent herbicide rather than just spraying after the fact?
There, the two applications that would occur according to the proposed action item, there is a pre-emergence for spring and post-emergence application for the fall. What different types of chemical they use or herbicide, I don't know. I wouldn't be able to speak to that. But there is a method to that madness to indicate a pre-emergence and a post-emergence.
Yeah, I guess I didn't catch that in here. So. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
And item 5.6. I see Mr. Hobby is here.
Good afternoon, Commissioners.
Could you give us an update on the progress out of
Sure.
Aeroplanes?
Our goal has been to construct 25 duplexes. It'll be 50 doors basically in the process. We have right now 18 houses that are in the various stages of construction, from cabinets going in one house to framing on another house, anywhere in between. We have 5 floors that have, the foundations are there. We just need the underfloor plumbing installed, and those are being worked on as we speak today. So we're moving again as fast and quick as we can. The wind does not help us, and the weather this winter did not help us much either. So there are various phases, all 25 duplexes.
Do you have a timeline of any coming online?
We would like to, yes. But no, we've not set a specific timeline when we'd have units done. We're shooting for to have some of the single-story homes we first did, we called it the Citation Home, the single-story home. We plan on having done by sometime mid-May, something like that. So all 6 of those units.
Okay, all right, thank you. No other comments. I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Mayor, I move to approve the consent agenda.
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda as read. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. Brings us to administration, item 6.1.
Item 6.1, certify final costs for 2023 special assessment projects, which are Lakeview Estates Number 2, Magnolia Hills Estates Number 2 Phase 2, and Wheatland Valley Edition, and set April 22nd, 2024 as the date of public hearing.
Okay, hold on just.
Mayor Longvine, due to conflict of interest, I will be recusing myself from this item.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Teutsch.
Mr. Mayor and Commissioners, Jim Teutsch, Director of Public Works. So this item, as Nikki had mentioned, is for the 2023 special assessments projects for Lakeview Estates, Magnolia Hills, and Wheatland Valley. The KSA says that as soon as the cost of an improvement is determined or that the total cost has been estimated, that the governing body should cause the assessments that for the lot, the parcel, the land to be benefited, to be determined. Salina's history, going back 1989, the Salina City Commission developed a resolution that to form a comprehensive policy establishing the use of special assessment financing for public infrastructure. While there was not a time period set for the repayment of the assessments, it was a longstanding practice of the city of Salina that be 10 years. In 1998, that policy, that resolution was amended to allow for either 10 or 15-year payback installment periods. And subsequent to that resolution, virtually all of the developers chose 15 years for the projects. In 2018, all of the formulas and percentages were eliminated so that 100% financing of public infrastructure could take place. In 2022, 7 members of the development committee, or 7 members of the development community requested that the installment period for special assessments for their projects be 20 years, changing it from 15. The current policy and Kansas statute gives city commissioners the discretion to approve 20-year financing on a case-by-case basis, citing the special conditions or circumstances that support a 20-year repayment schedule. All of the developers report that due to shortages and large cost increases in materials used to install the public infrastructure, and given that housing costs and/or affordability is an ongoing topic of conversation with this commission, and given that increased costs are passed on to home buyers, and then finally given that special assessments are regularly at or exceeding $45,000 per lot, the residential developers believe and wish to have extended payment periods so that the installment period is 20 years, given all of those circumstances. The purpose of this meeting is to formalize the final cost for the developments. Lakeview Estates, Magnolia Hills, their final costs are both the property owner's share. Wheatland Valley does have a $35,000 city cost share, and that is due to, rather than having a 5-foot sidewalk along Markley, the city wanted to have a 10-foot hike and bike trail, so it would be the city's obligation to pay the difference for the cost of the additional 5 feet for that sidewalk. If this item is approved, then we would hope to set the public hearing for April 22nd, at which time we'd conduct the hearing, consider the assessment ordinance, set the bond length, and determine the installment period, which they are requesting 20 years. The assessment ordinance would be published on the 25th if approved, and that would begin the 30-day period where property owners have the opportunity to prepay the amount of their special assessments for their properties. On the 27th of May would end that 30-day period, and bond sale would be on the 10th of June. As a fiscal note, this action sets the foundation for the final determination of the assessments after the public hearing. Any petitioner that requests special assessments must furnish the city with a financial guarantee of 20%. Typically, these are letters of credit. All of the developers involved provided the appropriate financial guarantees for these projects. The financial guarantee is released upon request of the petitioner once the certificates of occupancy have reached 35% within that improvement district. And basically, the recommendations are, or your options are, you could accept the statement of final cost and set the hearing date for the 22nd of April. You could postpone and provide staff with additional direction or information or amendments that are necessary. Or you could not accept the statement of final cost and set April 22nd as the special assessments hearing and provide us with further direction. Staff recommends option number 1. And I will do my best to try to answer any questions that you may have.
Questions for Mr. Toish?
No.
Questions?
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any public comment on this item? I'll bring it back to the commission for action.
Mayor Longbine, I move that we accept the statement of final cost and set April 22nd, 2024 as the special assessment hearing date to consider authorization of special assessment financing and authorize the term of the installment payment period.
Second.
We have motion and second to accept the statement of final cost and set April 22nd, 2024 as the special assessment hearing.
I'm sorry, Mayor, I was just
Yes.
wanting to make sure, and I'm looking to staff to be sure that my question is pertinent, but I believe the thought was hoping that the repayment period would be specified numerically.
Correct.
Specified
So
in the motion?
Well, the motion included setting it, but it did not refer.
the term of the
I
installment.
think the option was designed, option number 1 was prepared in a way that would allow the commission to make whatever determination you thought best as to that number of years.
So we're really just wanting to communicate at this point, as we make known that there's going to be a public hearing, that you'll be entertaining the question of a 20-year term on the financing as well. So we tried to provide wording there that it'll be a special hearing to consider authorization of the special assessment financing and to authorize the term of the installment payment period. So it was kind of a 2-part motion there.
Mike Mitch is on
Oh, and then we do have
that's what.
bond counsel on the line if need be.
Oh,
And that's
So-
the only reason I jumped in. I was afraid he might not have opportunity before you acted, and
So we're not necessarily asking you this evening to authorize 20-year term, just acknowledge that as part of that public hearing process, it'll be determined, and that 20 years is up for consideration.
okay. Would you like Commissioner Lindquist to reframe the?
Yeah, I can was it an addendum or just reread it with the appropriate information in it?
whichever you prefer, the latter might be the more clear, I
I
suppose.
can do that. With that in mind, Mr. Mayor, I move this commission accept the statement of final cost and set April 22nd of 2024 as the special assessment hearing date to consider authorization of special assessment financing and authorize the term of 20 years of the installment payment period.
Second.
Okay, we have motion and a second to accept the statement of final cost and set April 22nd, 2024 as a special assessment hearing date to consider the special assessment financing and authorize the term of installment payment term of 20 years during this hearing. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries 4-0. We'll welcome back Commissioner Hoppeck. Okay, item 6.2.
Item 6.2, authorize the city manager to execute an agreement with the Union Pacific Railroad Company to replace 520 feet of the timber railroad crossing in the middle of 4th Street north of Walnut Street with concrete at a total cost of $784,892 and a city cost share of $510,180.
Mr. Toich.
Mr. Mayor and Commissioners, it's hard to believe that we took this project on beginning in 2021, but that's how long we've been in negotiation with the railroad for this particular at-grade crossing. One of the primary questions that came up during the past several years is, why does the city have to pay for these improvements or any portion thereof if this is railroad? We heard that from several different people
including the city manager.
Including the city manager over that entire period of time. And at one point first I researched what does the federal statute say regarding this matter, but we also reached out to the contractor who is working on the engineering design and cost estimates on behalf of UP Railroad Benesch, and they provided a statement, and they basically said, if you go back to history in the United States in the 1800s, where the railroads went, cities followed, development followed. And that wasn't just to be, what they were saying was the railroads were built and then transportation evolved around those railroads. So that was the premise for the federal law, which states projects for at-grade crossings or grade crossing improvements are deemed to be of no ascertainable net benefit to the railroads, and there shall be no required railroad share of costs. So when we look at this, we think of it as a railroad project, but really what we are trying to do is make it safe for motorists, bicyclists, pedestrians, etc. And for that reason, federal law allows the railroads, not just UP, all the railroads, to be exempt from having to share in those costs. Typically, the railroad does not participate in a cost share program for at-grade crossings. As you all are very well aware, this particular area, we're calling it an at-grade crossing. It is at-grade railroad, but it's really down the center of 4th Street. It is in very poor condition. We contacted Benesch and have been working on this, as I mentioned, since June of 2021. They did finally provide these costs that Nikki explained. And I guess as a little bit more of history, we do have about 70 of these crossings in Salina. Their value at the current railroad price would be about $7 million. The remainder of 4th Street, if this project were to be approved today, is about 2,300 feet at an estimated cost of about $3.5 million. That's the entire amount for that project, just to put the project in perspective. So the next question that we faced was, why so much? So we held a meeting, and we actually had emails going back all the way to June 2021 talking with the railroad about this, and we sought to build in cost protections and try to value engineer this as much as we could throughout that process. Some of this is not really in our control. If the railroad agrees to do this project, then obviously we have to follow by the conditions that are required for safe rail transportation. So part of the project includes what they call run-on and run-off, and it's how the train will react once the project is completed, not only from old track to new and then new track to old. So it was determined that 520 feet was the length of the project necessary to achieve that. So that's really important. We asked what other materials might we use other than concrete, such as wood, composite materials, etc. And UP did explain that those materials do not work for this type of crossing. They are either for private crossings or for much lighter load or fewer motorists traveling on that particular area. Asphalt is limited to very, very few locations, and it was not even as a consideration for the railroad for this project. Wooden timbers, surprisingly, are not always cheaper than concrete, and this entire the railroad describes this as an entire system, and when it's built, the rails remain, and the whole system remains under pressure. And wood does not do well in that situation. We do expect that when they remove this, that many of those timbers will simply split apart. The railroad expects this material to not be reusable in any way. And it is specialized equipment done by specialized workers, and those were the reasons that UP and Benish provided for what might be perceived as a very high cost. Initially, UP told us that it was 100% on the city's responsibility. We pushed back pretty hard, and over the last several months, we explained to them that in several of the past projects that we did, 2014 through 2018, we did 4 projects, and in the first one in 2014, they did 100% financing, and the others, they did 65-35 split cost share. And eventually, they agreed to say that they sort of caused a precedent to be set and that they would honor the 65-35 cost share for the city of Salina. The next question I had was, how long will it take? First, if approved, the agreement is expected to take about 4 months for the railroad to prepare it and then send it to the city. It is anticipated that this work would take place in the construction season of 2025, so probably late spring, early summer of 2025 before the project would start, and we expect it to take 1 to 2 weeks. We will have to find a place nearby, a yard, where they can pre-assemble these into 40-foot sections so that they can be dropped into place and the crew can keep moving in order to meet that 1 to 2 week time frame. So that's work yet to be done. The next question is, how do we pay for it? So we said probably the best way that I could think of was Kansas Department of Transportation or federal fund exchange monies. We anticipate to have sufficient funds to pay for this project in 2025. And with that, you have the following options: to approve it with amendments, to postpone, or do not authorize the city manager to execute the agreement and then provide us with any further direction that you wish to provide. And staff recommends option number 1. And with that, I'll try to do my best to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. Questions?
No, I probably had the same question everyone else did, but kind of get the feeling this is a non-negotiable offer, at least at this stage. And the street needs to be fixed. So.
How far off are we from
remainder of that 4th Street, the 3.5 million?
We have not even begun negotiating the remainder of this line. If that is my direction, then I'll start pursuing that. But we have not yet.
What's the condition of it? I mean, was my
Oh,
intent.
I'm sorry, I misunderstood. It is probably in, maybe not equally bad. It's in pretty bad shape. It's coming to the end of its serviceable life, I would say, at least from our perspective as a roadway.
I guess we'd like to ask just one question, just for completeness' sake. Are discussions about rerouting that traffic west, I guess that's west and then south on the west side of the airport and then back to our industrial area, dead talks at this point?
When you say traffic, you mean the rail
Rail
line.
traffic,
You
sorry.
mean moving the line?
Yep.
I'll help you out there. That was kind of a brainstorming item that came out of the comprehensive plan that's a little bit dated. At the time, after the comprehensive plan was put together, we investigated that a little bit, and it was cost prohibitive. There are users on the end of the line to the south, so abandoning the line isn't an option. It would have to be rerouted in some way. So beyond kind of that initial identification as an idea in the comp plan and initial investigation of cost, we really haven't pursued that any further. Presumably, inflation hasn't made it any more affordable than it was that first pass.
I would add that both the contractor and UP told us that the cost of their materials have underwent the same pressures that that you've heard all the directors talk about over the past several years. It's just gotten very expensive for that, and I would imagine that that's a very high amount to try to do that. And as Mike mentioned, or as the city manager mentioned, that we do have two industries down there, PKM and Stryton.
Okay. Thank you.
I guess that's my question and concern. I don't know how it's profitable for the railroad to just have two customers. Do they still service the water plant?
I will tell you, I don't know if Martha's here. I don't know the answer to that. I will tell you that the railroad said that it's, for the most part, it is not profitable. They, and I, I don't have, I'm not privy to the railroad information, but they said that they have many lines that haven't been profitable for a very long time, as the rail industry is under a lot of pressures from other transportation modes and the same kind of cost increases, labor shortages, all that stuff. But they did mention that they no longer see it as whether it's profitable for us. Sometimes it's just in their best interest to do it. And for what it's, I guess my commentary doesn't matter, but I feel pretty fortunate that we were able to get any cost share from them, because for a long time they pushed back, pretty vehemently that they were not going to support this.
So it's not negotiable to abandon the line?
That's something we really haven't pursued. If that is something we want to look at, the first place I would turn is the end users in the community that are dependent on the line and whether they have alternatives. Then it becomes a question for the railroad. But everything I'm aware of, there's the current level of interest exists, and there might be increased interest by users.
Yeah, I know the users have dropped off over the years, and the line used to go somewhere. Now it just goes down south and then comes back. But yeah, it seems like a lot of money. So all these crossings, say over here on Santa Fe, gets to where you can't drive on it, that's going to be on the city pretty much.
I mean, we'll continue to fight for that cost share. We're going to try to hold them to that 65-35 at the very least. Even on when they're just simply at grade crossings. But if they wish to just play hardball, they could say no, and the federal law supports that.
And I think it predates the dates that are in the staff report, but The rail crossing at Santa Fe was improved, the rail crossing at 9th Street was improved. So they have the concrete panels in them that we're proposing to install here. I think part of the question just becomes the expected life of those concrete panels. It's a function of them staying level and whether they need to be adjusted, and then ultimately if they need to be replaced.
Well, last year they did replace a section in front of the garage with wooden ties.
Yes,
Was that at their expense?
it was.
Okay.
That was due to an issue that they had with the rails, and I think an agreement with the museum perhaps, but it was not about the at-grade crossing.
So
It was about
If the
a
train's
problem
going to run
that
off the track, they'll fix it.
Absolutely.
Okay. Huh. Well, it's a lot of money, but, and this will just be for the concrete ties, right?
No, this is for everything.
This is the rail and
I
everything.
mentioned that they view this as a complete system, and once they break the rail and start separating these components, that all of those components have been held under load, under stress for the entire time they've been installed, and the railroad will not reuse them. They'll dispose of them. So the rail, the panel, the ties, everything that they use in building that rail will be replaced for that 520 feet.
Okay. Any other questions or comments?
Thank you.
Thank you. Any public comment? Bring it back to the commission for action.
Mayor Longbine, I move that we authorize the city manager to execute an agreement with the Union Pacific Railroad Company to replace with concrete 520 feet of the timber railroad crossing in the middle of 4th Street, north of Walnut Street, at a cost of $784,892 and a city cost share of $510,180.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve a motion authorizing the city manager to execute an agreement with the Union Pacific Railroad to replace with concrete 520 feet of the timber railroad crossing in the middle of 4th Street, north of Walnut, at a total cost of $784,892 and a city cost share of $510,180. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 5-0. Look forward to nice, smooth railroad tracks. That will bring us to developmental business item 7.1.
Item 7.1, approve ordinance number 11201, amending Chapter 35, Article 12, Section 35-267 of the Salina Municipal Code to transfer renewal authority for sidewalk dining license agreements approved in the downtown area from the Salina Business Improvement District Number 1 Design Review Board to the zoning administrator.
Thank you. Mr. Andrew.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. This is a proposal that was initiated by the Downtown Design Review Board, proposing to make the annual renewal of sidewalk dining license agreements an administrative process, where currently it is a process through which applications go before the Downtown Design Review Board. So the initial program for establishing rules and guidelines for having a sidewalk dining that would allow the sale and consumption of alcoholic beverages on public sidewalks and plazas was initiated in 2014. Blue Sky Brewery was the first establishment to get an area established, and they were the first to have a renewal, but they were renewed by themselves. But the first full round that we did in 2023, we had 6 food service establishments that had their applications come before the Downtown Design Review Board last April. And the first thing the board asked was, why are we doing this? And so we explained that in the initial ordinance that was set up in 2014. The Design Review Board was the body given authority to review and approve the renewal of applications. And they expressed their preference to staff that those reviews be an administrative function carried out by staff. And they felt that doing that administratively would simplify it and streamline that for the affected businesses, and asked whether the ordinance could be changed. So we, on that initiative, have prepared a draft ordinance amendment for your review and consideration, and that ordinance substitutes the zoning administrator as everywhere the term Salina Business Improvement District #1 Design Review Board appears in the ordinance, and that is done to reflect that as renewals come in, they would be reviewed by city staff and approved, those renewals approved by city staff. The other change that was proposed is that the ordinance set the responsibility for reminders going out for renewals to the city clerk's office, and that has been done by the planning zoning staff since the inception of the program. So that was proposed just to reflect how it's actually being done. The other thing that staff suggested was that the renewal deadline be pushed back to March 1st, because in our department there's a lot of carryover items from the previous year, annual reports and statistics being compiled and things, and February 1st occurs before everybody even realizes it, and March 1st is allows more time for both the business and for staff to get organized on those renewals. So the only one that exists that has not been renewed yet is a Prickly Pear, because that was the newest of the agreements, and Barolo Grill chose not to renew their license agreement for Strand Plaza. So we've not had any that didn't get renewed, but if there was some reason that staff would deny an establishment's renewal, that establishment could appeal that non-renewal to the city commission and request a hearing. So none of the establishments have made any changes or expansions or modifications to what was initially approved. And so from staff's perspective, this is, it's a fairly similar arrangement we have with places like Stutzman's or Caw Valley Greenhouse. Their locations and their layout plans are approved initially by the City Planning Commission, and then once they have that initial approval, as long as they come back every year with that same plan, then the city staff just renews their permit annually. And so the proposal here would be to, the City Commission would still be approving the initial license agreement for the area, but this would make that renewal an administrative item from staff instead of making them go before the Design Review Board. So with that, I'd be open to any questions you have about sidewalk dining.
Questions?
We've discussed it. I think this makes a lot of sense to turn it over to staff.
Well, I hope no one was trying to dine outside yesterday, but
And prime days like today are at a premium. So.
Yeah.
yes. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any public comment? Back to the commission for action.
Mayor, I move approval of ordinance number 24-11201, incorporating the proposed changes in the sidewalk dining ordinance.
Second?
We have a motion and a second to approve ordinance number 24-11201, incorporating the proposed changes in the sidewalk dining ordinance. May we have a roll call?
Commissioner Davis?
Aye.
Commissioner Hoppick?
Aye.
Commissioner Ivy?
Aye.
Commissioner
Aye.
Mayor Longbine?
Aye. Motion carries 5-0. bring us to other business. Is there an item Commissioner would like to bring up?
Only thing I had is I believe I saw on our agenda, maybe for next week, we have something to discuss, proclamations. I know that's been
Correct.
discussed among the.
Didn't mean to interrupt.
No,
You're
right.
correct.
So I guess,
Something that
will there be
the-
a recommendation made, or I guess different scenarios?
Yeah, I think we'll provide you an overview of kind of the underlying considerations behind proclamations, and we've had conversations in strategic planning previously about free speech forums and how we have to administer a free speech forum. So there'll be quite a bit of background. Assistant City Manager Sean Hennessy is working on that as well. He gets all these complicated things that take some time. So he'll be able to provide you an overview of kind of the considerations, review what we've done. And we've also polled peer communities in terms of how they proceed, and then you'll have some options for your consideration. So,
You said next week
or two.
Assuming? Okay, just want to
Correct.
make sure
Yes,
I
next
hadn't
meeting.
missed a
Yeah.
memo. Okay.
Yep.
I'm still used to saying that,
Right.
yeah.
And it
Next meeting is what I
Next
should have
meeting,
said,
okay.
yes.
It could merit being a study session topic, just kind of given the breadth of it and the narrative discussion nature of it, but given that slot was already taken and kind of the sense of urgency to keep that topic going, it'll be an agenda item, but it may be a longer discussion than typical.
So do we anticipate this just being an information and discussion or an action item?
I don't know that we have, whatever direction you give us is likely going to require us to then draft a resolution. So if we can come out of that with a preferred direction from you, then we can respond with the necessary amendments to adopt a resolution at a future action that reflects the direction you gave us. But I don't know that we'll be able to have something drafted. There's just too many possibilities to try to account for all those in that first draft.
Any
I
other
have a
business?
couple of constituents inquire about that baby box program with the fire department and where we are with that. And
I know the conversation's ongoing. I haven't talked to Chief Snyder recently. I know he's coordinating with the citizen that reached out to us. So a location's been identified, and the different considerations have been identified, and I think it may be down to a budget and fundraising. But I haven't heard a whole lot since we did the facility tour beyond what you've previously heard. But I can follow up.
if they had additional questions, who would they talk to about that?
Chief Snyder
Okay,
with the fire department.
thank you.
Any other items? That'll bring us to citizens forum for citizen comment on something that's not on the agenda. Please limit your time to 3 minutes or less. State your name, please.
Rosemary Mize, Salina, Kansas. Mayor, Commissioners, want to let the public know that the Granny Brigade is hosting a information forum next week, Tuesday evening, April the 16th, on property tax. Sean Robertson will be our guest speaker, and the public is invited, and it's going to be at the Carver Center at 7 p.m. Next week, Tuesday evening, the 16th of April.
The day after tax day. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Starla. I just had a question
Just
about
please
housing.
state your name. ma'am.
The development upstairs.
Can you give us your name, ma'am?
Starla Willenberg.
Okay.
The place, well, the building code inspectors for the city and county, as well as upstairs, the people you go to when there's discrimination in housing. My question is if they're contracting with so many landlords and they have conflict of interest because they contract with the landlords, such as Saline County Community Housing Corporation, which you guys, the city, also contracts with them. I was given the runaround from the city building code inspector. All the people that I talked to within this courthouse, the city people, I mean, everyone gave me the runaround, even the police officers. I had CORE, they actually dismissed it without prejudice, which I have all the proof that there was a gas leak in my house that they tried they switched out and replaced the meter, and my gas bill shows the tremendous gas leak. And that was while I was at the hospital getting medical attention. The cops, it's all a lie. If you can read it by 2 different calls, you can see the cop light on it. My question is just, how is somebody supposed to actually get justice when my kids are sitting there having to get injections because their lungs deteriorated because of the clogged chimney that's made with asbestos? The radon levels that were at a rate of 15. And then I have city code and building inspectors giving me a runaround telling me, well, I'll be out of there in no time, so there's no point in doing anything about it. Running me off, leaving me and my children homeless with health problems. And if the development people, the people you go to for, problems like this, they can't do nothing because they contract with people like the housing authority for one. I mean, they've been in violation the whole time I've lived in this house. Nobody's ever fixed a thing. I have all the violation forms as well. Who are you supposed to go to?
State HUD, and I believe we've provided you that information, but we can provide it to you.
Steve HUD.
The state of Kansas's housing department has
Yeah.
priority. When we have a conflict, we then defer to them, and they have jurisdiction.
But why wasn't I given that information until after I was already out of the house? I mean, I think that it's unfair, and I think that I've emailed some of these commissioners, nobody's returned my emails back. I mean, I think that the city's being ran. A lot of these houses are harmful to people, very harmful. And when you have cops, police officers, when you have the city officials lying, I have it all recorded on a recorder. I recorded all the phone conversations. That's how bad it got. My question is how's anybody supposed to get anywhere? You guys wonder why there's so many homeless people? I mean, I've called the Salina City Grace or whatever that place is. They said they couldn't help me either.
Hey, ma'am. Thank you.
Yeah.
Norman Mantle, Salina. You need to start reading magazines. You need to look at the Atlantic magazine last year. It's called Stop the Shooter. Have any of you ever read that yet? That's a serious issue. It's facing law enforcement. The law enforcement in Parkland, Florida, and Uvalde, Texas, was not held accountable for their actions. So, you don't need to be putting this on law enforcement. It's on you 5. You need to see this is taken care of here in this city. You're putting your law enforcement people in serious harm. Read that article. Number 2, are you ever going to hire a new deputy chief of police? You tried to go over there and meet with them, and I can't get anybody to meet with me. I attended both the ag meetings, farm show, and the horse show. Never seen any law enforcement there enforcing the diaper issue. And the horses were out there making a mess. Why wasn't that being enforced? 3 days. I was there all day. Never seen anybody. So, also a seed company, I asked them about this issue of having these pesticides that are being put on the seed. They're not concerned about it. I said, well, it's killing people. Because that seed goes in the ground, the insects eat it, the birds eat the insects. We've got an ecological disaster. You're going to end up eating that stuff. So, about the dog issue, who's at fault? It ain't the dog. The dog is just defending his domain. You threaten an animal, they're going to react.
Anybody else?
Yeah, Mayor Longmire, we do have one online. Well, we had one online.
They just
Looks like they just.
away.
I guess we can move along.
Are they not logged on at all anymore?
No, Donald got
I don't know if the commissioners noticed, but we had someone on Zoom that had their technological hand raised. We were getting ready to go to them, but they looks like they logged off or lost connection maybe.
Well, I don't see anyone. So we have 2 executive sessions.
And Mayor, if I could, given the attendees, we've got some outside parties, our specialized legal counsel for the second one. So if the commission was willing to, we could reverse that order and address the outside parties first. You, as the chairman of the meeting, have the authority to change the order if it's without objection with the rest of the commission. So my suggestion would be that we take 10.2 first and 10.1 second.
Do we need to make that an action item or just?
If it's agreeable to the mayor and it's no objection by the others, no motion is necessary.
Is everyone okay with moving 10.1?
Sure.
Yep.
To the bottom?
How long do we need, Friday?
Let's try 30 minutes.
30? Okay. Okay.
We take a little break for between,
If you need one.
please.
Okay. Will 3 minutes be enough, or do you need
Yeah.
more? Okay. Mayor Longbine, I move the City Commission recess an executive session for 30 minutes to discuss with spatial legal counsel the subject of legal considerations relating to the Cozy Inn versus City of Salina case based upon the need for consultation with an attorney for the public body which would be deemed privileged in the attorney-client relationship pursuant to KSA 75-4319B2. After a 3-minute break, we will return to this room at 5:40.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to recess into executive session for 30 minutes. And we will resume in this room at 5:40. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 5-0.
Commissioners, in addition to yourselves, attendees will include Amanda Jokerst and Todd Messenger, specialized legal counsel on this matter, myself, the Deputy City Manager Jacob Wood, Assistant City Manager Sean Hennessy, City Legal Counsel Greg Bankson, and Community Development Director Lauren Driscoll. And we do not anticipate action following this executive session.
Okay, we are back in session and we have no action to take on item 10.2. And that will bring us back to 10.1, another executive session.
Everybody's looking at me for time. We may run longer than this, but let's start with 45 minutes, please.
Okay. Mayor Longbine, I move the City Commission recess into executive session for 45 minutes to discuss with legal counsel the subject of confidential legal considerations relating to points of negotiation with Salina Destination Development, LLC, regarding Phase 2 of the city's multifamily housing project based upon the need for consultation with an attorney for the public body, which would be deemed privileged in the attorney relationship pursuant to KSA 75-4319B2. The open meeting will resume in this room at, somebody going to help me? What time?
6:37.
6:37.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to recess into executive session for 45 minutes to discuss negotiations with Salina Destination LLC. We will resume in this room at 6:37. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 5-0.
Once again, a few housekeeping items. I did say we may run long. If that's the case, we'll reconvene here, have to authorize additional time, and then go back into executive session. Those in attendance other than yourselves will be myself, the city manager, Deputy City Manager Jacob Wood, Assistant City Manager Sean Hennessy, Director of Community Development Services Lauren Driscoll, and Greg Bankson is legal counsel. We do not anticipate any action coming out of this meeting.
Thank you. Okay, we are back in session. We need to clarify the time that we stated.
We're not very good at math.
Well, it was a group effort. We all went down this path together.
We're not very good at math. We're going to try this
Commissioner
again.
Hoppick, I'm sorry, now that I think through the process and the fact that we have reconvened at a time differently than anticipated, I think it's probably best to
Yes, I was going to read
fully
the
state
entire.
the-
Yeah,
okay.
read the entire. So, okay, Mayor Longbine, I move the City Commission recess into executive session for 45 minutes to discuss with legal counsel the subject of confidential legal considerations relating to points of negotiation with Salina Destination Development LLC regarding Phase 2 of the city's multifamily housing project, based upon the need for consultation with an attorney for the public body which would be deemed privileged in an attorney-client relationship pursuant to KSA 75-4319B2. The open meeting will resume in this room at 6:30.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to recess into executive session for 45 minutes to discuss negotiations with Salina Destination LLC. The open meeting will resume in this room at 6:30. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
Once again, clarifying for anyone that may be watching at home or otherwise, we just got our math off in terms of 45 minutes stated a time that didn't equate to 45 minutes. We've come back, clarified the record, all the same attendees, and we don't expect any action.
Okay, we are back in regular session. We have no action to take this evening. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. We are adjourned.